Today let's learn more about TrustLine. This video is more of an assignment than regular tutorial, but I'll walk you through the assignment with code hints and some explanations. But all the code hint I'm showing in this video has already been explained in previous video tutorials, so please make sure you are following the order in which these tutorials are posted, and also please make sure to code along with me. And also please make sure to note all the small things I'll be sharing in this video. It can easily be very confusing, so if you write it down in your own words, it will surely help you. So I want you to note two things here. Here, Alice is the issuer. Bob and Charlie are user accounts. This is a trust line between Charlie and Alice. So this trust line has some settings or configurations from both Charlie and Alice end. That's one thing I want you to understand. A trust line is always between two accounts and both accounts have some configurations on that shared trust line. And the second thing, Alice owes $10 to Charlie and Alice also owes $20 to Bob, and if Bob wants to transfer $3 to Charlie, he can simply ask Alice to transfer $3 of her obligation from Bob to Charlie. So finally the trust line looks like this. So transferring issued tokens from one account to another account just means shifting of individual obligations of the issuer, and that's called rippling. Trust lines are always between a user and an issuer. In general, it's between two accounts. So both accounts have some settings or configurations on that trust line they share between themselves. In addition, we should also see who is establishing this trust line. Here the user is establishing the trust line with the issuer, and in most instances this is the case. So here, user is the active side and issuer is the passive side, because user is doing something to set up this connection and the issuer is not doing anything here. So user is the active side and issuer is the passive side. So when setting a trust line, on the side that's setting the trust line, the flag of the trust set is used. So this is the flag and this is a trust set transaction, and this sets up a trust line with rippling disabled. If you miss specifying this flag, then rippling will be enabled from user end on this trust line, which is not recommended setting. So if you are a user, then always set no ripple flag on the trust set. On the incoming side or the passive side of the trust line, the flag of the account set is used, that is the flag default ripple. Let's first run account lines command on user account and see the result. This is the command and the output will look something similar to this. Let me explain this output a little bit for now. This is a user account. This is the issuer account. For user, this is the peer account. So wherever you see keyword peer in this output, it means it's a configuration from issuer end or the other account's end. All other configurations are from user end. Here, no ripple means no rippling. No ripple means no rippling. We already know what is rippling, right? So if no ripple has value true, it means no rippling from user account side on this trust line. If no ripple has a value of false, it means rippling enabled from user account side on this trust line. Same thing holds true for no ripple peer, but it's from peer account side. Please watch this part once again and make sure you clearly understand what no ripple does when it's true and when it's false. Now the key thing to understand here is no ripple setting is from user end, which is the active side in this case. So to enable or disable rippling on an individual trust line, user should use flag with trust set transaction type. But the passive side or the issuer end in our case, the value of no ripple peer is picked up from its account setting. That is, if the account has default ripple flag enabled on the account, then no ripple peer will have a value of false, which means rippling enabled on this trust line. If the account does not have default ripple flag enabled, then the no ripple peer would have a value of true, which means rippling disabled on this trust line. And this value of no ripple, which is from active side or the user end in our case, is not picked up based on whether default ripple flag is set on the user account or not. By default, its value is false, and while setting up the trust line, user must set no ripple flag, which disables rippling from user account's end. So one more critical thing to understand here is the TrustLines setup before enabling default ripple will all have no ripple pure as true, and all the TrustLines setup after enabling or setting the default ripple flag will have no ripple pure as false. The old TrustLines values does not change when you set or clear default ripple flag on the account. As an issuer, you can individually modify the value of no ripple pure, and I'll show you how to do that in this video. Please be very clear about this concept. Rewatch this segment if you didn't understand it. It's very important topic and the most misunderstood one. So I'll repeat this once again. The default ripple flag is an account setting that enables rippling on all incoming trust lines by default. Issuers must enable this flag for their customers to be able to send tokens to each other. If you are a user, the default ripple setting on your account does not affect the trust lines that you create. Only if you are an issuer, that is the passive side of the trust line, then only your setting of default ripple counts for the setting of the trust line. Also note that if issuer changes the default ripple setting on the account, trust lines that were created before the change keep their existing no ripple setting. You can use a trust set transaction to change the no ripple setting of an individual trust line, which I'll be showing in this video going further. So these are the flags and transaction types and the value associated with the flags. This is how you set and clear default ripple on your account. And if default ripple is set, it means rippling enabled on incoming trust lines. This is usually set by issuer, and no ripple means rippling disabled. No ripple means no rippling. And clear no ripple means rippling enabled once again. That is clearing this set no ripple flag, which again enables rippling. If you as a user have wrong setting on any trust line, for example here no ripple is false, which means rippling enabled on this trust line from user end. So to disable rippling on this trust line, you must rerun trust set transaction with set no ripple flag. This fixes the issue. If you are an issuer and have no ripple pure as true, which means rippling disabled, but as an issuer you should always allow rippling. So to fix it, run this trust set transaction with clear no ripple flag. As you can see, this is your account, that is issuer account, and this is the corresponding user account with whom you have the trust line, and make sure the value is 0 unless you have frozen the account. For all other normal accounts, you should have a limit of 0. So if you execute this, no ripple will be false, which means rippling will be enabled on this trust line from issuer side, which is the proper setting. Now let's learn about default state. I'll explain how to set your account to default state on any trust line, but before that, let's learn why we need to set it to default state. That's because of owner reserve. We already know that when we set up a trust line, we need to pay for the reserve. As of now, the reserve is 2 XRP per trust line. But since we already know the ripple state object, or in simple words, the trust line is a shared thing. It's between two accounts, and both accounts have some configurations on this trust line. So who pays for it? So who pays for it depends upon the default state. If a user is not in default state and issuer is in the default state, user pays for this reserve. If user is not in default state and even issuer is not in the default state, then both of them pay the owner reserve. That is, if owner reserve is 2 XRP, user pays 2 XRP and issuer also pays 2 XRP for the same trust line. Now user is in default state and issuer is not in default state. In this case, issuer pays for the owner reserve. And if a trust line is in its default state on both sides, it will be removed or deleted from XRP ledger. Now let's see how to set default state from user end as well as from issuer end. So this is the output when we run account lines from user side. So let's see what are the default settings from user end. So in order to set this trust line to its default state, the first thing is to set your balance for the token to 0. You can either sell it on the DEX if there is enough liquidity, that is if there are people who are willing to buy it, or send it to another account as charity or to whichever account is willing to hold it, or send it back to the issuer. If you send the tokens back to its issuer, those number of tokens get burned. Okay, so make sure the balance is 0. That's the default state with regard to this field balance. And the limit, the number of XTP in this case you are willing to hold, should be 0 as well. So limit peer, it's not from your end, so you can't control it. And quality in, quality out, it's like a percentage fee. If it's a stable coin, if this token is a stable coin, quality in, quality out is kind of a on ramp and off ramp percentages, that is fee set by the issuer. So for these fields to be in its default state, it has to be 0, which means 0%. So the last field left here is no_ripple. It can take two values, either true or false, but which one is considered as default state for the user? That depends upon the flag default ripple on this account. So if default ripple is enabled, look, what is default ripple? Default ripple means allow rippling. So that has to be enabled on this TrustLine too. So no ripple should be false, which means enable rippling here if this account has default ripple enabled. If default ripple is not enabled on this account, then rippling should be disabled on this TrustLine too. That is, no ripple should be true. That would be its default state, and we can calculate it using this. That is, if default ripple is enabled on the account, then just clear no ripple if it's set. If default ripple is not even enabled on the account, then just set no ripple, which disables rippling on that account. So you can write a simple program to set user side to its default. We can just run a simple command like account info and fetch all the flags and pass it to this function. By the way, you need to install a package called flag names and import it first, and then use this function. The first parameter is the ledger entry type. In this case, it's account root. If you don't remember it, not a problem, just fetch it from the ledger. And the second parameter is the actual flags. So once you execute this flags constant will be an array of all the flag names set on this account. Okay, so the currency code is XTP in this case. Alter it according to the currency code you have for your TrustLine. This is clearing the freeze. If you have set up a freeze on your account, you can clear it by using this flag. If you set this set no ripple flag, rippling will be disabled on your account. Clear no ripple means we clear this no rippling, which enables rippling on the TrustLine again. So as I said before, the first requirement is you should not be holding any of this currency. That is, your balance for this currency should be 0. Sell it on the DEX or send it to someone who is willing to hold it, or send it back to the issuer. Make sure you have 0 balance of this currency. That's the first requirement. And the second requirement is the limit should be set to 0, which we are doing here. And quality in and quality out should be 0 as well. Now the flag. If you have accidentally set up freeze on your own account for this TrustLine, let's clear it. Okay, if you have not frozen your account, it doesn't matter if you still run this code, so not a problem. So just include this flag in any case, plus this flags constant. If it includes this flag, it returns true. So if this account has this default ripple enabled, then which means we should enable rippling by clearing no ripple flag. If default ripple is not set on this account, then just don't ripple by setting set no ripple flag. That's it. Run this code and your account, that is from user end, will be set to default state, which means you will not be paying for the owner reserve for this TrustLine. I'll be showing this once again in a separate video, so if you don't understand anything in this, just continue to watch. If you are an issuer and want to set your site to default, in most cases it will always be in default. For some reason, if it's not in default, run this code to set your site to default. The same thing, run account info command on issuer account, fetch all the flags present on that account, and then set quality in, quality out to 0, limit to 0. And one thing to note here is the issuer account here the address should be the user address with whom you have the trust line. Now the flags. Clear the freeze if you have set the freeze on any account. Plus, check if default ripple is present on this account. If it's present, then clear no ripple, which means enable rippling. If this default ripple is not present, then just disable rippling on this trust line. So this code sets the default state from the issuer end. Now let us look at a command called account objects, which outputs ripple state object, which has information about trust line. Ripple state represents trust line along with all the configurations from both user and issuer end. You can just run this command and feed the output to this flag names function. You already know where it comes from. Install the package flag names, import it, and then pass in the ledger entry type and then the flags. In our case, we only have one object because we only have one trust line, so we are passing that first trust line information to this flag names function. So the output will look something like this. The issuer for the balance in a trust line depends on whether the balance is positive or negative. If a ripple state object shows a positive balance, the high account is the issuer. If the balance is negative, the low account is the issuer. In this case, it matches with low limit, so low account is your account. So if you pass these information, that is ledger entry type and the flags, to this flag names function, it will return all the configurations set on this trust line from both user and issuer end. In this case, low account pays the account reserve, which is your account, and the low account also has no ripple set, which means low account doesn't ripple on this trust line. So that's how you analyze a ripple state object. There's one more very important command, and I intentionally placed it at the end of this slide because that is one command running which you can just fix the default state of either a user side or the issuer side. So this is the command, which is no ripple _ check. So from user end, you need to run this command, that is no ripple _ check, and the account should be user account and the role should be selected as user. The role takes two values, that is user and gateway. Gateway means the issuer. So don't interchange it. If it's a user account, the role should be user, and if it's a issuer account, the role should be selected as gateway. If you miss this, the results will be messed up. Okay. This transactions field is optional, by the way. I have a value of true to it, which means it is included in the output, and it's a very useful thing because if you have this transactions value as true, it will give you code snippet, that is payload information. Just sign it and submit it to the network and it will fix your issue. So if you are an issuer, you need to run this code and the output will look something like this. This output is from issuer end, and the issuer has 3 problems with no ripple. And if you can see, this transactions field got included because we have transactions field here and its value is true. So that's why it's being included in the output, and it has 3 objects. So you can just, these are payload information. You can just sign it and submit it to the network and the problems get solved one by one. So this is a very important feature, very important command. You can just have an interface with fix button in front of your trust line if it has any misconfigurations. User can just click on the button, sign the request and submit it to the network, which fixes their problem with no ripple. There is one problem though. As long as there is a ripple state object or a trust line object connected to your account, you cannot delete your account from XRP ledger to get back your account reserve, which is 10 XRP as of now. A common example of this is an issuer has a misconfiguration on the trust line shared with your account. Now you can't remove or delete the trust line because it's a misconfiguration from the other account's end, and hence you cannot delete your account from XRP ledger now. So you got to be very careful who you trust and set up a trust line with. One more issue is somebody else establishes trust line with your account and now you can't delete your account because there is a ripple state object which is shared with your account. The only hope that someone else won't do it with your account is that they have to pay the owner reserve for that trust line, and also they can't delete their own account until they have this trust line. I'll end this video with some snippet of text I have directly taken from xrpl.org. Please read what is limit, authorized trust lines, no ripple, freeze, quality in and quality out.